Okay, guys, we are live.
Hey, Juan. Hey, Alec. How are you guys?
We're doing
Good,
great. How
Rick.
about you, Rick? How
Well,
about you,
I'm very
Alec?
happy. Yeah, I'm doing great. And thanks to Susan Salmon for recommending that we play some music like before so people know that we're starting here. We don't always start on time. We're like a rock band, I figure. You know how like rock bands never start on time? But now, so we're going to play the music, and it's not rock music, it's very peaceful music. But anyway, I'm doing great. And Alec, how about you?
I'm doing really well. It's been a long week, so I'm happy to be at happy hour.
Yes. And Juan, thank you so
Yeah.
much for organizing all this stuff, the YouTube, the Facebook, the eCam. How many different programs do you use to make this happen?
There's probably 3 or 4 programs being used to make this happen.
Well, thank you so much. So anyway, speaking of thanks, we want to thank our members for being here. How long have we been doing this? Like 3 months?
Yeah, that's a good question. How many episodes do we have? I don't know. That's a good question. But it's been at least 3 months.
Yeah,
Time
well,
doesn't matter
At
anymore.
least
With this
since
pandemic,
May.
time is like, completely disappeared.
you're right. I have to wake up. I say, what day is it? What do I have to do today? If I have a meeting, like I freak out that I have something to do. Right? But anyway, we want to thank we want to thank our members for tuning in. As Wolf Blitzer says, around the country and around the world, Juan, Alec, and I have a ton of fun doing this. And for those of you who are new to our happy hour, what we do is we review members' photographs. There are so many amazing photographs, and each week we pick a different topic. So today's topic, as you can see by my slide here, is landscapes. So we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but we had almost 700 entries. And Alec is going to talk a little bit about topics in just a minute, and then at the end also. But we are all, with happy hour is only about an hour, so we can only pick about 25 or 35. This week it's 25 images that were tagged with the landscape topic. And we're going to talk about this image in just a little bit. But Alec, do you want to talk about the topics, the importance of the topics?
It's critically important that if you want Rick and Juan to consider your image for viewing on an episode of the Happy Hour, that you tag it with a topic. And we have a new topic that we've added today, scenics, and a little later on we're going to give you an illustration of that topic. But that's the most important question in the chat I get is, how do I get my picture considered? It's add a post topic, and just look up under post topics how to add a post topic.
And it's also a great way to get inspired. If you're into landscapes, just go to the landscape topic, click on landscapes, butterflies, close-ups, whatever, scenics, the new topic. It's really a great way to get inspired. So before we get going, we have a couple of announcements here. Sunday at 11 a.m., we have like a pop-up phototherapy session with my friend, and Alec, you've been on his workshops, right?
I have.
Richard Burnaby,
Fantastic.
and he's going to smile on this one, right?
That's why I'm practicing.
He is? He's smiling? It doesn't look like he's smiling.
No, he's going to smile on the podcast.
Oh, he's going to, okay.
I teased him about not smiling, but he's going to say, he said that he's going to tell the best jokes on the internet during this. So definitely tune in for that. We have these pop-up sessions. Sometimes they're on Saturday, sometimes they're on a Sunday. This one's on Sunday. So it's going to be live like this right here on Facebook. And also, thanks to Juan, we have a YouTube channel. So Juan, you want to talk a little bit about this, the phototherapy YouTube channel?
So yeah, we have the YouTube channel where we are reposting and actually going live. We're actually sending the stream live both to Facebook and YouTube, and you can re-watch these, or if you didn't get a chance to watch these live, you can watch them after the fact. And part of the reason we set up the YouTube channel was so that people who don't necessarily belong to the phototherapy group, they can go in here and watch the videos. Also, the image quality, the video quality on YouTube is better than it is on Facebook. So if you want the best image quality to see these images that we're showing to you guys kind of in full glory, the best place to do it is on YouTube.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. But if people want to add comments or suggest comments, or while we're going through like today's pictures, Facebook is the place to put your comments, because we've disabled the comments. Actually, I've disabled the comments on YouTube because we get some crazy
Naughty
comments.
people.
Some naughty people, naughty, nasty people are posting those. So anyway, please, we would love to hear from you during the session, during all the sessions. We love your feedback. We love hearing from you. Speaking of stuff that we do here every Monday, Alec, you want to talk a little bit about the Monday meditation with Linda,
Yes.
our good friend Linda Marshall?
Our friend Linda Marshall equates and relates her photography experiences to meditation, and how she uses meditation to get inspired in her photography. So we've had some fantastic sessions over the last few weeks, and as Juan mentioned, all of them are on a playlist on the YouTube channel. So if you're not able to catch us live at noon on Mondays, you can join Linda anytime you want to reflect and just calm down a little bit.
Yes, and
I'm there often.
Yes, and these stressful times, I think Linda's doing us, tremendous, favor, service, and all this stuff is free, by the way. So we really love doing this. It's good phototherapy for us too. And the last announcement before we get to the pictures is Juan has this really cool podcast with his friend David. Juan, want to talk about images in focus?
Yeah. So my friend David Swindler and I have this podcast that we started doing, and it's a video podcast, and we release it roughly every 2 weeks. And it's usually about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the topic. And what's cool about this podcast, kind of different than a lot of other stuff that I've done before, is that David and I kind of take a deep dive into a particular topic. So, for example, the past couple of sessions have been all about autofocus. We started with kind of the basics of autofocus. We went a deep dive into back button focus, and the next episode is going to be advanced autofocus techniques, and then after that we're talking about a depth of field. So that kind of gives an idea. We're kind of taking a topic and kind of going a little deep dive, and it's all video, kind of similar to what we're doing here, but we have a specific topic that we're talking about with illustrations, images, slides, all that kind of neat stuff.
So what you're saying is you don't go off topic like me all the time.
Right. Well, we do a little bit, but we stay within the topic. We stray from our notes.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. But we stay on topic. Yes.
Yeah. Well, for our viewers and our listeners, you definitely want to check this out, because Juan knows, as remember when we used to do the podcast? I always said you're way more technical than I am. So if you want to know about back button focus, this focus, that focus, AI servo focus, one shot, focus tracking, that would be a really good thing to do. Okay,
well, thank you. And the cool thing is, actually, before we go, Rick, we're going to talk about drinks. But the cool thing that I want to mention is that we don't really talk about gear on that podcast, which is different than a lot of other podcasts. I know some people will be disappointed in that, but it's really more about technique than it is about gear. So anyway, that's cool. Can we talk about what we're drinking? You're drinking water, yes. Rick? What's going on?
I'm drinking water. We have a friend, Prate, coming over. Alec knows her. Some of our members know Prate, and she's coming over for dinner, so I'm saving wine.
Cool.
So we're going to have some wine with dinner.
How about you, Alec? What are you drinking?
I'm on my 6th iced tea of the day.
Sixth iced tea of the day, and the 12th trip to the bathroom.
Snapple, that's what it is. Snapple iced tea. If I float away, you'll know why.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, Rick,
and
before we get started, I just want to point out that we have Stephen Wilson from Maitland, Australia, on the line, watching us today. And we also I saw somebody earlier who has joined us from Rose Kieran from Hamilton, New Zealand. So we are across the world, right?
Wow, that's right.
Sharing images. So, Rick, I'll let you get started.
That is awesome. Well, thank you, Alec. When people would jump in, if they could say where they're from, I'm in New York, Juan's in Maine, and you're in New Jersey.
Beautiful Bucks County,
Pennsylvania. Yeah, Pennsylvania.
Bucks County, Bangor, and Croton-on-Hudson. Okay, finally, to our pictures. One of the things that I love, and Juan loves, and Alec loves, is we love, the comments that people make. They just don't post a picture. So Pat, she says here, I've been in a photography funk for a couple of years, and then she said that phototherapy brought her out of it. And Susan and I have been to the Glacial Lagoon in Iceland. Have you been there, Juan?
Oh, of course. Absolutely. I haven't been on a boat on the Glacial Lagoon like you have, though.
Yeah. In the Zodiacs, this is like so much fun.
But I've been there a few times, to photograph the glaciers. It's just unbelievable.
It is. It's an unbelievable place. It's one of the places that I would love to get back to. But I think Pat did a really nice job here. I'm so glad that phototherapy inspired her. And Iceland 2017. When I go to Antarctica, the first time I went, I don't know about you, Juan, I went for the wildlife, but I fell in love with the blue ice. And getting to Iceland in the Glacial Lagoon is a lot easier than getting to Antarctica, right? Right? You fly 5 hours to Reykjavik, and then it's just a few-hour drive to the Glacial Lagoon. But
yeah, certainly, it's a lot cheaper too. Even though Iceland is insanely expensive, it's a lot cheaper than getting to Antarctica.
Absolutely. But, what I like about this, I always say, and by the way, for our viewers, we're just not showing pretty pictures. We're going to try to give technical tips and some inspirational tips and some other things. But when I tell people, when I talk about exposure, I say expose for the highlights. And I really like the way she has detail in like a lot of the highlights here. And she has this foreground element. And she has some separation between this subject and the background and the nice blue sky. I think it's just a wonderful picture. It's one of those pictures, I don't know about you guys, but it makes me feel like I really wish I were back there.
Yeah, what I like about this image is certainly the color, the continuity, the fact that you have the sky matching your water in the foreground, and the reflection that's there in the ice. This is a kind of a play in blues, right? And definitely different shades of blue. I think I may have gone a little tighter in at the bottom. Yeah. Having those two little ice flows there, or little icebergs, if you will, kind of adds a little bit of interest, but not enough. I mean, I would tighten it up a little bit more at the bottom. Really, our primary actor here is that blue ice in the middle of the frame, right? So that's what we want to focus on. And, as a viewer, when you're looking at the image, your eye may get lost a little bit as you wander around and look at different parts of the scene. So certainly I would, crop in a little bit, tighten up the composition a little more, maybe a tiny bit more on the sky, and draw your viewer's eye straight into that ice, because that's the most important part.
I think she was trying to get most of the reflection in here. So maybe cloning content aware might work. We don't play around with the images. We just show what we, some of the images that we like. But, Susan Salmon likes this kind of picture where we have some contrast also. In the past, sometimes I wouldn't frame it like this with, this dark, dull, brown rock in the back. But after shooting with Susan with her iPhone, she likes pictures like this. So I've been shooting where we have some nice contrast, and it shows really how stark Iceland is, where a lot of scenes from Game of Thrones were shot.
Right. Yeah. And, and you can, one thing to keep in mind when you're in locations like this, right, is to, manage your perspective by your height. If you get down lower to the ground, you'll be able to make that ice kind of more prominent and bigger in the scene. It would cover some of those mountains in the background, but you could probably go up a little bit, right, and cover some of the dark areas in the mountain and make that iceberg in front a little bit more prominent. If you go up higher, you kind of make the ice smaller, and then you would see more of the mountain behind it. So keep an eye on that perspective of your height, where you are in relation to your subject.
Well, all good tips, and thank you so much, Pat, for sharing. So, as our members have noticed, we have a new banner photo. And every week, every Wednesday, we choose a new banner photo for a lot of reasons. If it's going to look okay cropped, as Juan knows, I am not big on cropping, but we have to crop to fit in the space of our banner photo and make sure that the name goes, our phototherapy goes in a space, and the person's name goes there. But
Rick, it's like a magazine cover, right? You make images to work for a magazine cover. Here, we're trying to find images that work for a Facebook cover instead.
Yeah. Right. Yes, but this is just so stunning, so beautiful. At 3 a.m., one of my tips is you snooze, you lose. Kurt did an amazing job getting up at 3 a.m. or staying up to 3 a.m. or maybe a jet lag when he arrived there. He was just up anyway. But, I really like everything about this image. I like the crop and even the little reflections down here. Over here, we said that maybe, these little pieces of ice don't add anything. But I really like these reflections because they're like drawing us in. They're all pointing towards the center here.
Well, that bottom part kind of serves as a framing element in the scene, right?
Yeah.
And it makes your eyes kind of follow that curve of the water down into, making a kind of a U-turn into what makes this image, which is that beautiful light all behind those clouds and those wispy clouds against those stars. So I think the image flows really, really nice from right to left, and those bottom ripples kind of frame, the image and kind of, constrain the flow of your eye. So I kind of like it also.
And how about the exposure? How tricky was this exposure?
Yeah,
right. The
absolutely.
Sky, right. Over here, getting back to the highlights not being overexposed and blown out, the composition, we had detail in the shadow areas. I don't know how much work was done in post, but man, oh man, when I saw this, I just said, stunning. Look at these comments, beautiful, stunning, stunning, so beautiful.
And it's interesting looking at this image. It's kind of a square crop, right? Which I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of the square crop because the images that are square to me feel more static. But it really works for this image. I think the square was probably the right aspect ratio to use. Nicely done.
Absolutely.
And Susan Salmon agrees. She points out the square crop.
Any other comments so far, Alec?
Not to the image specifically, but I like the to the left, right, as you follow that S that Juan talks about. Those clouds that almost look like giant vanilla frosted cupcakes.
Yes.
Right there.
Oh yeah, right. Very good. Well, we all see
my picture within the picture.
Well, Alec has been working all day, so he's starving. So that's probably why.
Yeah.
Okay, look at this shot. A new person here, I think, is relatively new to the group. Corky Heller. I love the composition here. The birds look nice, the clouds look nice, but the way that this scene is framed, and he says it's a combination of two images. But Juan, don't you just love the way that this? You talked about over here, how the ripples acted like a frame. I think the rocks and these weeds and the trees and everything act like a frame, and it's really beautiful. One of the Ansel Adams used to say, a picture's not done until you darken the edges. So this is naturally, darkening the edges with the way he composed it.
I really like, there's so much in this image to look at. It's so rich with the amazing texture in the sky, the amazing texture on the foreground, the reflections on the water and the birds. Everything. There's so much to see in this image. I think the blues of the sky are a little bit too saturated for me. I would tone those down myself. But other than that, it's great. And I love the fact that he or she, Corky, took what they saw when they initially got there, and they weren't able to capture because it just happened very quickly, and recreated it after the fact.
Yes.
Right. Which is really cool. I love the fact that somebody's doing that they're, kind of being creative in that way. And, but at the same time, they talk about that they actually did that. I think that is the best way to do it, is to come up and say, hey, this is a photo composite. Don't try to pass it off to be something that it's not, right?
Well, I think honesty is the best policy all the time, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I think about 20 years ago, I was editing a book for National Geographic called The Seven Wonders of the World, and one chapter was the underwater wonders of the world. And there was a picture in there. It was a coral head in Belize, and there were like 37 different types of fishes on there, right? Well, maybe there was 17. So I say to the main editor that I don't think that all those fishes could be there, having dived in Belize 5 times before that. All the fishes could be there at the same time. So I asked the photographer. The photographer said all the fishes were there. But the end of the story was he finally admitted that they weren't there at the same time. So he cloned them in. So the reason honesty is the best policy is because you don't want someone to go to Belize, to go to a coral head and expect to see, all these fishes on a coral head or whatever, right?
Right. I mean, not only that, it just doesn't it just doesn't seem right and doesn't look right if someone finds out that that's what's going on. We've
Right.
seen this happening over and over with photo competitions where people are bending the rules and lying about what they're seeing, so or photographing. So it honestly is always the answer, no matter what.
Absolutely. Well, Corky,
Okay.
great job. And because Corky was new, I didn't know which one to select here. So I thought this picture was really nice. I like the composition, and this is a tough call, as Juan knows. How much of these little plants or whatever foreground element, how much to include. So maybe I would have included a little more because they're cut off like halfway. What do you think, Juan?
You're right in that it's really subjective as to how many of those you put in, how much of it to keep in or out. The one thing that to me kind of bothers me a little about the picture is that those reeds on the left-hand side collide with the reflection of those pines. And that
Right.
is my rule of thumb is I love having those foreground elements, especially against that water, as long as they're not interfering with the rest of the image. And I think that
Right.
that collision there is just a little bit too, I don't know, it's too distracting and it takes away from what would otherwise be an amazing image.
Yeah, if he had moved over this way, Corky had
A
moved
little bit,
over
yeah. Try to,
this way.
move up
Would have
like you're saying, right? You used to say use your camera like a spaceship, and now
Like
you
a
say use your
spaceship,
camera like
yeah.
a drone, right?
Right.
So move up and down, left to right, and look around the edge and try to find where all those elements lie within the image and what the best composition is. Sometimes it's just a matter of inches to the left, inches to the right, or up or down, right?
Yes, getting back to this one, I often suggest think like a painter. And that's what Corky was doing here. Corky saw the scene and said, okay, the birds weren't there, so I'm going to put the birds in. So thinking like a painter is a good idea. When it comes to, Juan and I talking about this and up and down and blah, 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 all this technical stuff, the most important thing in a picture is the mood, it's the feeling, right? And I
Right.
love the mood and the feeling of this. It does look like it's, I remember the first workshop we did together. If the horizon line's not straight, it drives you crazy, right?
Right.
Or the water
Right.
line. So this, I think, is going downhill a little.
Yeah,
What do
it
you
looks
think?
like it's a little bit on the left side. It's a little lower than the right hand side. And the thing is, right, what we talk about is sometimes those horizon lines, especially those shorelines, are not straight. If you're shooting
Right.
along a bank on the right hand side or left hand side, it may look like it's a little crooked. And what you want to do is you want to crop the image to what feels right, not necessarily to what is right.
Right.
Your gut feeling, your visual interpretation of the image is going to guide you. It's going to say, yeah, that doesn't look right. I need to straighten it out a little bit. So this is a place where this is not all about the numbers or all about the absolute level. It's what feels right and what looks right.
Yeah, and you could use the grid in Photoshop and Lightroom to see where the line goes, right? And then you could easily correct it in both Photoshop and in Lightroom. But anyway,
Yeah.
I like this. I like this picture. The mood and the feeling, the very peaceful and stressful times. It reminded me of this poster I'd seen for guitar. Where the horizon line, where the water line is in the center, and usually dead center is deadly. But I think when it comes to reflections, putting the horizon line or the water line in the center, what was going on up here? It wasn't in the center. I think can work. Everything, like Juan was just saying, everything is subjective. But I love the mood and the feeling of this. I might have made it a little darker. Usually, when pictures are a little darker, they have a little more of a mood to them. But again, some people might make it a little lighter, a high key. But I really, Juan, getting back to this image where you said there wasn't separation here.
Mm-hmm.
Look at the little separation between this tree and over here. So again, if Vitali was standing a little more to the right, this tree, we wouldn't have that separation. So I really like that too, which is what we see here. We have some separation.
I think I would have cropped the image a little bit tighter on the top and the bottom, made it more of a panoramic image, because the sky is beautiful, but it doesn't have a lot of interest in it. So I would bring down the top and bring down the bottom a little bit. And I agree that this image, I think, is best with our horizon straight through the middle, even though oftentimes that's not what you want to do. But when you have such a beautiful reflection, it does work.
This would be good for, for cover phototherapy, right?
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
There we go. I'm going to get rid of that. There we go. How much fun is this for our listeners? Okay, here's another one. Stephen Kessler, he's posted here a lot. I like this. I was thinking of this usually, like when I was talking about the glacier picture. Where's our glacier picture up here? That I don't like the brown or dark area, gray in the background. I usually don't like brown here or like dead trees, but here I kind of like it. I might have used a little bit less, but all this for our members is really totally subjective. But look at the reflection here. I think this is just a beautiful reflection. What do you think, Juan?
I agree. I think it's a neat reflection. I love the fact that you have that background or that foreground in the bottom that again serves as a framing element. Yeah. I think I may have gotten a little I don't know, a little bit further down, getting your camera a little lower so that you can compress some of that water in the foreground. I love the reflection, but I want to compress that water a little bit more and get a little bit of a different perspective on the water in the foreground, right?
So there's a lot of different ways to do that, right? We could, choose a different lens. We could move the camera at a different angle. We could crop. I really like the scalloping here. But here's another picture. Man, oh man! What's the expression? The key to a good landscape is a good sky, right?
Mm. Right.
It sounds funny.
Absolutely.
Key to a good landscape is a good sky. And there's another one that goes, never underestimate the importance of a good subject, right? So we have a great subject here. Okay, Buddy, how do you say his name?
Eliezer. Eliezer, yeah.
Talk about the mood and the feeling, and talking about the sky.
Oh, I love the fog. Absolutely.
I love the fog. I just love the mood and the feeling. I like the white border around here. We have the sun here. It's just such a beautiful. Looks like a pastel. In Nick Color Effects Pro, they have the pastel filter. This is looks like a natural pastel image. It's just a beautiful image, and composing it in this way, Jay Maisel, I think it's Jay Maisel, says there's usually 5 pictures you could see within a picture. So, this could be cropped 5 different ways to see different pictures. But I just love the way the job that Buddy did here. Man, oh man, I think it's great.
Yeah, I mean, I love, when you said the word pastel, I was just thinking that in my head too, is the pastel. I love the pastel colors. I guess I'm a child of the 80s when we had all sorts of pastels, right? But I love, the fog that's there, or is that fog or is that really dust? It kind of looks like dust.
Well, I think there might be some fog in the background. I think down here.
Yeah, and then the dust from the goats is in the Maasai. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And that detail of the sky up there, even though of the sun up there, is hard to see, but it really shines through. And then you got the color progressions from the bottom to the top. Absolutely beautifully framed. Nice job, buddy.
A lot of people go to the Masai Mara, with 600 millimeter lenses and, super telephoto lenses, and they want the tightest shot. And it looks like they could be taking the zoo with the shots of the animals. But, the wide angle shots, they have such a beautiful sense of place. Right. So you had you had pastels in the 80s. We had other stuff in the 60s. So
you had psychedelics in the 60s.
One knows about that. But, in going through these images, we saw some similarities, which you'll see later on. But for now, look at this pastel image, right, from Buddy. And look at this beautiful pastel from Linda Cullivan.
Beautiful.
This is just so beautiful from White Sands, which is not too far from where we're doing our workshop, is it?
Yeah, it's not far. It's I don't know, it's 5-hour drive or something like that south. I can't remember how many hours. I've done that a couple of times, and every time I've gone, Rick, I'll tell you, I've been skunked because every time I've been down there, there hadn't been no winds for weeks and weeks on end, and all the dunes were full of footprints. So I didn't get to see, these beautiful intact sand dunes. But this is beautiful. I love the subtleness of it. The really gentle gradations of color, as well as the gentle texture and the gentle edges of the dunes. Absolutely beautiful, nicely done, and nicely framed. I think that most people's inclination may be to crop that at the top a little bit, but I think this works really nicely because it's using that rule of thirds, right?
Well, you said gentle twice, and I think that's a good description for this picture. It's a very gentle picture, and this is a very gentle picture and a scene. She also did a really nice job with the frame here. This is just not like a line. It looks almost like a little bit of a drop shadow, and then the black border around that you could do in Photoshop with the stroke. I really like this. So anyway, This is not far from Bosque del Apache, where Juan and I are doing this workshop in December, hopefully. Right?
Hopefully, yeah. Hey, Rick, we've lost your video. We can see the image that you're presenting, but your video shows up as, like when it. Oh, there you go. Now you're back.
That 60s test pattern.
Yeah, that's the test pattern on TV.
Reference, and there's the 60s test pattern.
It's back.
Yeah, now you're back. Yes.
Okay, good. Okay,
but there's a lot of positive comment on Linda's image.
Is Linda here?
Linda is here. Linda was on right at the beginning, but all sorts of kudos for the image.
Oh, I think all the images are great.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
But this one seems to.
Okay, Stephanie, she had the banner last week. We don't know who's going to be on the banner this week, but here's her original image uncropped with all the type removed. I don't know about you guys, but I've seen a lot of pictures of a delicate arch. I've never seen a picture, not only with the sunburst here, but with this beautiful, her composition here is just beautiful. I've never seen a shot from this angle.
Yeah, and it's funny because I've been to Delicate Arch many times, and the interesting thing is not many people shoot from this angle. You have people shooting from further to the right over here, and you don't get to see that bowl kind of that goes into it. And I think the reason is because from the other angle you get the mountains in the background that oftentimes have snow. They're snow-capped mountains, so you get these beautiful snow-capped mountains in the background. But I love this angle. Next time I'm there, I'm gonna be definitely looking for this angle. Although nowadays this place is so crowded with people that it's hard to get a good shot without people in the foreground. You have people, walking along the base of the arch, all sorts of stuff. So it's kind of a zoo. But if you get to go there, this would be a beautiful angle to shoot from.
Yeah, Susan was talking about this, that in Bryce Canyon, people along the trail, you've been to Bryce, right?
Of course,
That trail Sunrise at Sunset Point, she says people are walking around there without masks. So I'm not ready to go to one of these places where people are walking around without masks, but maybe we shouldn't talk about masks on the
let's not talk about masks on phototherapy.
So anyway, I just love this picture. Just one tiny tip here, and Photoshop has a filter called lens flare, and when you have lens flare, you get these little dots here with the lens flare filter, and it can look nice, and sometimes it's intentional. If you want to get rid of these, just make sure your lens is really clean, because when you're shooting into the sun with a wide angle lens like this, that's what these are. These are dust spots on the lens. I mean, it's a small little thing, and still a prize-winning photograph with beautiful composition and exposure and a great subject. Talking about the separation, right? If she had been a little higher, or right?
A little higher,
or a little lower. No, maybe
a little higher. A little higher would have collided.
Higher. So I like that separation. So separation is really important in our photography because we see the world in 3D and our cameras see in 2D. So anyway, Stephanie, thank you so much for submitting the picture. Alex Morley, I love this landscape, seascape. He's a master at, getting the one shot. I have what I call as, my one picture promise. If you're in a location, if you can only get one picture, if you think about what would that one picture be, you think about the exposure, the composition, the lens, the shutter speed, all this other stuff. If you say to yourself, if I could only take one picture, what would that one picture be? I promise people that they'll get a higher percentage of good pictures. And Alex is like that. He's a very thoughtful person, and he really thinks about that one picture. And I just love the way, Stephanie has this bowl, as you call it over here. And and Alec has this bowl like over here, and the way the waves are caressing these rocks is just beautiful. I learned a good tip on slow shutter speeds from Alex. Alec, I didn't want to mix Alec up with
With Alex, yeah.
with Alec. Yeah, I learned a good tip from Alex K. Morley that when you're shooting slow shutter speeds, put your camera on rapid frame advance, even if you're
Yes.
shooting at 10 seconds, right? Because it
Oh,
captures.
that is a good tip.
Right?
Yeah.
It's a good tip because the gesture of that water changes so much and it looks so different going in and going out. So thank you, Alex. And I just love the way he has these birds up here.
So I mean, I can't read his comments up there, but was this a composite? So, because he's got the slow shutter speed on the water, but the birds are nice and sharp. How did he do that? Does he say in his comments?
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
Yeah, but I bet you it was probably either a composite or he added a filter at the bottom. Either way, it's very effective. Looks really nice, and I love how nicely balanced it is with that curve of the shoreline leading you onto the lighthouse, and then leading onto the birds in the sky. Very nicely done.
He also used the rule of odds for 9 birds.
Did you count them?
I just counted them.
Yeah.
But the other thing I like about this, and here's a tip for all landscape. I think if we look at all these pictures, they all have one thing in common. I'm going through them quickly. Yeah, they all have one thing in common. Everything in the scene is in focus.
Right.
And you do that. Well, there's a lot of different. You could do it with focus stacking. You could do it by using a wide angle lens, a small aperture, focusing 1/3 into the scene. You could use a tilt shift lens. You could do a composite or whatever. But that's what I like to do. When I'm shooting a landscape, I like it to look as it looks to my eyes. Everything in the scene in focus. So what I do is, again, wide angle lens, small aperture, focus 1/3 into the scene. Here, you couldn't really do focus stacking, I don't think. You'd get, the water might look a little too funky.
Yeah, I mean, I guess unless he did the bottom part as one frame, and then the top, the lighthouse is another frame, and whatnot. Because there are multiple ways of doing focus stacking, where you can have tons of different frames, or you can just have a few frames and then blend those in by hand, which is what we used to do before, the photo stacking, tools and features in Photoshop were around.
There's something else that he might have done. I see this beautiful side lighting here. But Alec, remember when we were with Scott Kelby in China? He did a little demonstration. He did a little demonstration where he took a landscape picture and he just took his dodge tool, and he just dodged some little highlights into the scene. So I don't know if Alec did that or not. It's a beautiful side light, and they may be natural. But this is a good tip. If you have a landscape, just take your dodge tool or your burn tool and move and just play around with it, and it'll really add some depth and dimension to the scene. So good job, Alec. Okay, this Rob Smith's picture here. This reminded me of Moonrise over Hernandez.
I knew you were going to say that because it reminds me of that image too. Which is one of my favorite. It sounds cliche, but is one of my favorite images from Ansel Adams.
I know. It's the exposure. I would like to see Rob's original of this because, as you know, Juan, Ansel Adams' original picture is so flat and boring and dull, right? If he didn't use...
Oh, yeah. If you look at the original, it's just, you look at it, you're like, that's a throwaway.
It's a throwaway, right? But what he did... So Rob did an amazing job here. You can see the craters on the moon and then the valleys, right, and the mountains and all this stuff. And also, I like the way he left this really dark on the top. We have these gradient filters in Photoshop and in Light Camera Raw and in Lightroom. But boy, oh boy, I like the way this goes like black. Rob, I think he should enter this into a contest. Is he here?
He is here. I'm waiting for a comment to pop up. But he is here.
Well, he did a great job. Great job here. And speaking of the moon, John Natov did this picture out in Oregon. Look at this. It looks like
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. At first, you don't know what it is. It's the moon, but so this is. I haven't been out here to this part of Oregon.
Or Mount Bachelor. The Chutes National Forest. Yeah, I mean, it is really interesting, and this is one of those images, right? We've talked about this before, that, you kind of think you know what it is, but you're kind of not sure. So you just keep looking at the image, trying to figure out, what's going on here. So it makes the image that much more interesting when you can't pinpoint what you're looking at, yet you're still attracted to it. And the way that your eye follows those lines in the snow, what I assume is snow, down to the moon and then down to that peak that's a little bright. Very nice, very nicely done. Beautiful.
Well, there's an expression that when you destroy the mystery of the photograph, you destroy the photograph. So that's not always true. Like here, I don't know if there's as much mystery, but there is a sense of mystery here. So it's just something to keep in mind. If you're looking for something to do this coming weekend, try to shoot or develop a picture, process a picture with the sense of mystery, which I think we had that category, Alec. Maybe one of our early happy hours.
We did it very early on with Jefferson. We talked about mystery.
Yes. Okay, Swappin. How do you say his last name?
Ja. Swappin Ja.
Ja. He was with us out in Yellowstone.
A number of years ago. I don't know, like 5 years ago maybe? He came
5 years
with
ago
us,
on the workshop. And I love this picture. Talk about Ansel Adams. We got Half Dome in the back, but I asked him to post his original, but he hasn't done it yet. He's a busy guy. He's a tech guy, right? I think he's
right. He's always busy. He's always got something cooking.
Right, and he's an amateur photographer, right?
Right.
All these pictures. I don't think we've showed. Well, maybe a few of the people have been professionals, but today I think it's really cool. I think it's really cool that you don't have to be a professional to get a shot like this. I mean, this is just so beautiful. The clouds here, but he might have used, again, that's why he has to post the before and after. Look at the highlights all over the place here.
Yeah.
So these highlights really add a sense of depth and dimension to this beautiful, beautiful image. And as cropped, it looks like in the HD format.
Yeah, I mean, I love, like you're saying, the highlights he's got throughout the scene. We talked about this before in that you have the high density, the high contrast in the scene, right? Which is really important to do, is to get the high contrast when you're converting into black and white, because that's what black and white was all about, is all about the density in the frame, right?
It's beautiful. So speaking of black and white, there's another expression when you take the color out of the scene. When you remove the color from the scene, you remove some of the reality. When you remove some of the reality, your picture can, but not always, look a little more artistic, a little more creative. So I like this black and white treatment here. But Swappin has another picture here that when I was going through these, Susan said, "Wow," she didn't know it was by Swappin. She was with us on the workshop, but look at the color of this. So the black and white, is nice, but look at the color. And we talked about the framing. Look how this mountaintop and the reflection here draws us in, and same thing here. This beautiful, beautiful composition.
Yeah, I mean, obviously what really draws you into this image is that super sweet light on those, distant parts of the scene and how they reflect on the water below. Really nicely done. Nice composition too. If you look at the bottom, although we have a little collision at the bottom with that rock coming into the frame, maybe I would have done it a tiny bit wider at the bottom so that I didn't have that collision. But other than that, I think that the composition is nicely done. And, I think part of it is because it works on that left-hand side. Oh, Rick, you went to the next image. Can you go back?
I know. I'm here. I was going to try to move up because I had another rock image, but go ahead.
How you see on the left-hand side that tree that's there. I think on the upper left-hand side that, the fact that he included that in there, kind of, rounds the image out. So it doesn't make it look like, he thought about the composition when he was looking at it.
Yeah. Well, what we say is we use border patrol, right?
Right.
We run our eyes around the edge of the frame to make sure what we want is in the frame and what we don't want is not in the frame. So I really love the exposure here, the composition, and Susan and I are planning a trip there. So hopefully we'll get down to this spot. Okay, this looks small. Sissy Fry I'm sure she's here, right, Alec?
I haven't seen her, but I'd be surprised if she's not.
Well, she's here. She's here often, and this looks small here because it was a cropped image and posted at a small resolution. But I think Sissy did a great job of, cropping gives us a second chance at composition. So I don't know if this was cropped or if it was a pano, but either way, I love the reflection here. And this, I think, Juan, is a situation where the water line is not straight, but here we could see that it goes off into the distance. So here I think it works.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think it's straight enough. I think it kind of curves a little bit on the left, but you know what?
Yeah.
You know what is the dead giveaway, right? Is the building structure there, and if those lines that are straight on the building kind of tell you, okay, the image is straight. No matter if that horizon was sloping to the left, as long as those trees that are individual and the building give you that hint that this image is straight the way it should be.
It's really beautiful, right? The colors, and this is not oversaturated. We have a picture coming up, I think, where the colors are a little oversaturated. When it's oversaturated, you lose detail. So again, we're trying to share some of the things that Juan and I have learned over the years about making pictures. Now here's a shot. This is what happens. So next time, Sissy, if you could post a higher resolution picture. So here's another shot. I don't know if it's a panel, don't know if it's cropped, but Stephen did a great job here, I think. I love the mood. I love the feeling. I love the crop. Just all these boats, just like lying around here. I would love to be here.
Yeah, it does. It kind of gives you the feeling, kind of end of season, if I had to give this a title. But you know what, Rick? This kind of brings up a point, and something we're going to talk about a little later as well. Is this a landscape image, or is this something else, right?
Right.
To me, this is more of a scenic than a landscape image, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a natural, it's all hand of man. It's all, the primary subject is, something that man has created, not a landscape that is in nature. So that to me is probably one of the criteria, if there was one criteria to separate a scenic from a landscape image.
And again, we're going to talk about that as in the last slide. So this is very important. Okay, I like the shot. Who took the shot? This was Stephen. Yeah, Arlene Courtney.
Courtney, yeah, Arlene. Yes, nice. I love that.
I really like the way that she has the pool of water here, of the waterfall. I might have darkened the edges, a little to draw our attention a little more to it, because this looks a little flat compared to all the like here in this shot. Or I might have, used the burning and dodging tool, whatever. But I thought the composition was really, really cool, and the fall colors are just beautiful.
Well, talk about framing and talk about coming up with the right spot to be in. I'm sure Arlene had to move to the right, had to move to the left, up and down, like we've talked about, to frame that water as it's falling onto that little pond there. It's absolutely gorgeous, stunning. And I think that what really makes the image is that little opening with the water falling, where you see where the water is hitting the pond or the lake there. If you didn't see that, you'd be kind of like a little lost, because there's so much in the foreground. But just making sure that you capture that water as it falls into that body of water is just absolutely gorgeous and stunning. Really nicely done, Arlene. I love this.
And usually dead center, like this is really in the center of the frame. Usually it doesn't work, but I think it kind of works here because it's so symmetrical on either side. But maybe cropping, putting it off to the left or right, might be a good idea. But
yeah, I don't know what's on the left or right, but you may be right. I may be going a little bit to the right, and but depends on what's on over there, right?
Well, everything depends, right?
Right.
Okay. This picture, Heidi Erickson, I love this. When Susan saw this, she was leaning over my shoulder today when we were going through these. She said, wow, that's beautiful. And it is beautiful. And the composition is nice. And as Scott Kelby says, when you're driving around and you see a lone tree, jump out of the car and photograph it. But I think it's a little oversaturated, as you noticed in one of the other pictures up here, Juan. Because when things are oversaturated, there's this just looks like an orange patch here. So
you start losing you start losing texture, right, in the scene. You start losing that detail and texture in the scene when it's just too saturated.
Now, I know that in Nik Color Effects Pro, there's a duplex filter, which I actually like, which makes it look kind of soft like this. And when you use that filter, the duplex filter, again, in Nik Color Effects Pro, it does this effect. So maybe this was the effect that Heidi was going for. So maybe she can let us know. But I love the mood and the feeling, but it's just something, again, to watch out for, that if an area of the scene is oversaturated, you lose detail. Also, this doesn't look that natural, but again, if Kincaid, the painter who died a gazillion here, was watching this, you'd say, that's fantastic. I want more saturation, right?
Right.
Okay, Phyllis Webster. I love this.
Look at this double rainbow.
A double rainbow, and I was reading about double rainbows recently, and I read that in the second rainbow that the colors are reversed. So here we have red on the outside, here we have red on the inside. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I love the feeling here, and again, everything is subjective. This was taken out in Colorado. If Ansel Adams was live today, he might take out the truck and the sign, which would change the mood. Susan and a lot of other people here, I'm sure, would like the truck and the sign in here. So again, it's just something to think about. But I like the road here, that you feel like you're there. And just one other tip before Juan gets going: if a rainbow isn't that defined, I use Photoshop more than Lightroom, but you can do the same thing on Lightroom. I take the saturation brush and I just brush over here to bring out the rainbow. I think Phyllis she was lucky to see the rainbow, but she was prepared to get it for sure.
Yeah, I guess I'm with you in the removal of the truck. I'm not sure about the sign. I kind of like the sign because it gives you a sense of place. But the SUV coming up the path doesn't do much for me. Now, had it been like an antique vehicle or something like that, something more interesting versus like an everyday vehicle, that certainly would be a different story. I love how you framed the two rainbows against the mountains. But again, I think the sky is a little bit over the top saturated. This is what I would call a Windex sky, because it looks the color of Windex in a bottle. It's just a little bit, you never see a sky quite like this. So it's, to me, a little bit distracting. So I would, a little bit distracting to what would otherwise be an amazing, beautiful image. So I would try to tone down those blues on the sky a tiny bit and bring them more to skies on this planet.
So you would like an antique truck in here. Maybe we could get, going back to our bird shot, maybe we can get Corky here to find an antique. Yeah.
Well, last week we had that guy that put the car in the scene. Remember that? Which was absolutely beautiful. The Porsche,
Princeton in the scene, yeah.
Was that Joe Pellicone, I think?
I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, I think it was.
I'm not sure, but yeah, I know exactly where the Porsche was on Route 1 in Princeton.
Yeah,
pretty funny.
Yeah, it was a Porsche in the middle of nowhere, and then he placed it in somewhere in Montana. It was absolutely beautiful job, and maybe he could do something like this. Yeah.
Getting back to your comment here about the sky, one of the advantages to using, I don't know how this was processed, but one of the advantages of using the brushes is you're thinking selectively and not globally. Right. So in a situation like this, someone might want to see the rainbow more saturated, so they boost the saturation of the whole image. So when you use the brushes, you're thinking selectively. You're thinking like a painter. A painter's not going to look at a picture and say, I'm going to make the whole thing, the whole thing more saturated, more, darker or lighter, sharper, more contrast. They think selectively. So I always say, again, like I was saying in this one of the pictures before, think like a painter. They always think selectively and not globally.
Yeah, okay, I agree. That's a great point, and it's probably one of the best tips was given today is that when you're editing, think more selectively than globally, right? Oftentimes we're making a lot of adjustments in globally, kind of coming up with compromises between one section and another of the image. Definitely when I'm doing editing, my global edits are usually pretty tame. It's when I get into selective editing that I kind of get a little bit more aggressive and come up with something that really makes the image stand out.
Yeah, I think this picture, getting back to Swappin's picture, definitely has some selective editing, and same thing here. There's a joke about, well, I think I tell it almost every session, but about Ansel Adams. Someone goes to, after seeing his pictures, goes to Yosemite and says it doesn't look like that. Well, that's because he was the master of burning and dodging in the wet dark room, right? With his little with the little burning and dodging tools. So, man, don't you wish he was like around? So many people still talk about that guy.
Yeah.
Now everyone's a photographer, right? Back then, But I think what separated him not only was his work, he loved the environment and he fought to protect the environment. He was a conservationist, and I think it's so lucky that we had him, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he always
absolutely.
talked about the importance of protecting these lands. Okay, getting back to this. Okay, Gerardo from Mexico.
Gerardo. Yeah.
I don't know if Gerardo is here, but I like what he said about this. And and the tip here is, think about, your picture and look into the picture again, like Ansel Adams would say, look into the picture, not just at the picture. And he says, an open shot of the smooth sunset, the clouds played their role nicely, I think. They appeared to be moving lightly away from the sunset, and I think that adds some movement to this picture. So, one of our goals when we're taking pictures is to try to add a sense of movement. And this picture, sometimes a picture naturally has a movement, like Alex's picture here. But I like this picture a lot. I love the mood. I love the feeling. And as anyone who's shot a sunrise a sunrise, the best time to take a sunrise picture is before sunrise. And oftentimes the best time to take a sunset is after the sunset, like this, right?
Right. And what I really like about this image, when you look at this image, it's actually a pretty simple image, right? It's very simplistic, but there's so much to look at here. There's so much that draws your attention. That foreground, the shapes on the edge of that feature in the foreground, the little islands on the right-hand side. Oh, Rick, the screen is going big and small. I don't know what's going on. I can't see the image anymore. Yeah. The clouds, the way they're moving, as well as the color of that sunset. It's just, everything about this is beautiful.
Yeah. I like the color. It's not oversaturated. It's just so beautiful. Is Gerardo here?
I haven't seen him.
He is not here, but we know he will be on the replay.
Okay, so we're coming down the home stretch here, and we're going to go through some of the things that we talked about. We talked about the rocks in the foreground and some of the other pictures. Juan, what do you think about this picture by Joe Doherty?
I've done a lot of images like this, and I kind of like that rock in the foreground. There's enough interest there with the color and the texture and the water moving around, and everything is nice and wet, saturated and dark. To me, it works. I think a lot of folks may not like that rock in the foreground, but I think it depends on the things that interest you. For me, these scenes, having lived in North Carolina for many years, these are kind of the streams that we see in North Carolina. It's really attractive. I love the scene. I love the feeling of it. And I think that rock in the foreground kind of grounds the image. You start there and then you can see, further down into the scene. So for me, it works very nicely, actually.
And we have the separation. I might just make it a little darker. You see how this is dark here?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm saying, is it a picture of the rock or a picture of this whole scene here? But another thing I like about this picture, like I've said before, is everything in the scene is in focus, right? Back here looks in focus. We can see the twigs and we can see, all the detail on the rock here. And we have this separation. Also like the slow shutter speeds. Actually, Susan and I were doing a workshop in Iceland. And I was teaching slow shutter speeds. And one of the participants said they didn't like slow shutter speeds. So this goes back to like everything is subjective. I would say almost every time I photograph water, a scene like this, I would use the slow shutter speed, like Alex used.
It's funny because I've had that comment too. And I've had, actually, what's weird is that how I ran waterfall workshops in North Carolina for something like 8-10 years. And, in all those years that I ran those workshops, I probably had 2 or 3 people that came and said, I don't like the silky water. I like to get it all frozen in place. And I was like, sure, that's what you like. Yeah, absolutely. But to me, that silkiness, that that of the water, trying to capture that movement of the water makes it that much more attractive than just freezing the water in place.
Yeah, well, we're taking some of the reality out, right?
Right, exactly.
So good job, Joe. Bill Wags. I love the composition here. It looks like he used he likes, like we were talking about, the moving water, right? Moving water here. He has the moving clouds here using the slow shutter speed. I'm not sure about the rock. Maybe, again, make it a little darker. But it's I think the rock does balance the tree here. And again, a good exposure. We have detail in the sky.
Yeah, I mean, I think to me there's a couple of issues with that rock. I mean, I love parts of this image, but I don't. I think the overall image lacks, punch, because you have one rock in the foreground, and we like the rule of odds, but usually has to be more than one.
1, 2, 3,
You want to, exactly. You want to have a couple. If you had a grouping of images there, I think it would have worked better. And because there's so much water in the foreground, it's not adding that much to the scene. I think the most interesting part is the scene on the right with that rock and that tree, and then the scene in the background with the snow and the pines and the sky. The foreground water is just too much negative space that takes away from me being able to look at the parts of the scene that I find most interesting.
Well, you know what? I don't know if Bill used a polarizing filter, but I think if we could see some more of the rocks here, that would help.
Yes,
also,
that would definitely help. Yeah.
I don't know about you, but I love, and Scott Kelby was talking about this on a China workshop. We were photographing those cormorant fishermen. Remember, Alec, on the Lee River, he was demonstrating the clarity filter, the texture filter and the clarity filter. And I find that using the clarity filter on water, again, selectively, you wouldn't want to use it up here. It might bring out too much detail. But clarity, I wouldn't say it acts like a polarizing filter, but it does bring out some more texture and detail. So I would like to see some more of these rocks. So the lesson,
rock below the surface. Yeah.
Yeah. So the lesson here, one of the lessons here is that the foreground elements are really important. Okay, and closing up, because we're just a few minutes over, Alec is going to talk about the topics, because this was like one of the other pictures here in the landscape topic. So we agreed beforehand when we were going through this that it's a beautiful shot. I think what makes this shot is, everything in the scene is in focus, and the way this part of the dock,
the line,
it brings you right in. I love the small aperture here. What did he shoot at? F10 small aperture to get the starburst, the tricky exposure, the reflection. But Alec, do you think this goes in the landscape topic?
It's not a landscape photograph, but Doug, it inspired us to create the newest topic in our arsenal that Juan mentioned earlier, scenic.
Yeah.
So this will be reclassified as our first image in scenic. And as I said at the beginning, it's very important that you post those topics so that it helps our members and our new members catch up. Because, Rick, one thing I forgot to mention at the open is prior to our going live today, we welcomed our 2101 member.
Wow.
So we are over 2,100 members. So congratulations.
Very cool.
To everyone involved in the phototherapy Facebook page, because that's another milestone.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
We
That's
love
really
this.
cool.
I really look forward to it all week. It's so much fun working with Alec and Juan and seeing all the comments. I'm going to stop screen sharing right now. That's good.
Yep. Yeah, we're good.
So again, we went a little over. Alec and I hope we see you on Sunday at 11 o'clock. For those of you who have missed who want to watch this again, if you want a refresher on the tips, just go to our YouTube channel and tell your friends. We have we have over 2,000 members and 2,201 members. So we'd love to have some more members. So tell your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell people about the phototherapy sessions. I've had most of the folks that I know have been referred by other members. So make sure to send them our way, and hopefully they'll enjoy this. And if they can't watch us live Thursdays at 5, maybe they can just watch on the replays either on Facebook or on YouTube.
Yep. Well, thank you guys. Thanks to our members. And I'm going over now to see Alex's friend, my friend Prati.
Thank you guys. Take care.
Making bison burgers, by the way, Juan.
Oh,
You have bison burgers
bison
when you're out
burgers.
there?
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, hard to get here around my house. So whenever I see them, I definitely jump at them. So
But when
cool.
you
Well,
come
enjoy
down-
it. Enjoy it. Have a bison burger,
We will.
for me.
Well, I made 3, and one of is larger than the other 2. So
So that one's mine.
Gotta get over there.
I'll have a bite for you. Hang in, guys. Thanks so much.
Take care, folks, and
Take
see you
care,
next
guys.
week.
Bye.
Bye.